It was a chilly autumn night, the kind where the air hung heavy with the scent of damp leaves. I lived in a split-level duplex with my older brother, Noah. The house was built in the 70s, with two separate living spaces, one upstairs, one downstairs. Noah took the bottom floor, while I had the upstairs all to myself. He wasn't home often, usually staying over at his girlfriend's place a couple of towns away. I was used to being alone, but some nights felt different. Tonight was one of those nights. I had just finished watching an old horror movie in my dimly lit living room. The apartment had an open layout kitchen, dining area, and living room blended into one large, shadow-filled space. My couch sat in the center, meaning my back was exposed to the vast darkness behind me. Every creak of the house made me glance over my shoulder. I wasn't scared. Not really. I was 30, after all, and being alone shouldn't have rattled me. But I still found myself flicking off the TV a little quicker than usual and heading straight for bed. I was asleep for maybe 2 hours when something stirred me awake. I wasn't sure at first why my eyes suddenly snapped open, but then I heard it. A voice. At first, I thought it had been in my dream, but then it came again. Ethan. It was Noah's voice. I sat up, blinking into the darkness. The voice wasn't coming from outside. It was inside the house, down below. I checked my phone. 1:03 a.m. I was groggy, my thoughts sluggish. Maybe he had come home late, forgotten his key? But why wasn't he just calling me? I swung my legs over the bed, heart hammering now as I stood. My room opened into the hallway, which overlooked the stairwell leading downstairs. The door at the bottom of the stairs was closed, but I could hear his voice behind it. Ethan, he called again, a little more urgent. I reached for the light switch, flipping it on. The warm glow spilled down the stairwell, but the voice had already stopped. I hesitated. Something felt off. I called back, Noah. No answer. I took a few steps down, the floorboards creaking beneath me. Noah, what's going on? Still nothing. I reached the bottom and fumbled for the light switch to his apartment. The dim, yellow kitchen light flickered on, revealing an empty room. Noah wasn't there. The place was silent, but I had heard him. I stepped into his living space, peering toward his bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, and the air inside felt unnaturally still. Then a sudden thump. I froze. It came from inside his room. My pulse spiked as I crept forward, nudging the door open wider. The room was dark, shadows clinging to every corner. Noah, I whispered. Silence. I fumbled for the light switch and flipped it on. Nothing. His room was completely empty, bed untouched, closet doors slightly ajar, but no sign of movement. I swallowed hard, scanning the space. Then I noticed something off. A single book had fallen onto the floor beside his nightstand. That had been the noise. My skin crawled. I backed out of the room, my breath coming fast now. I hurried up the stairs, locking my bedroom door behind me. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and called Noah. He didn't pick up. A few minutes passed before my phone buzzed with a text. Noah, what's up? Me? Were you just home? A pause. Noah, dude, I'm at Bella's. I haven't been home all night. I stared at my screen. Then who the hell had called my name? I spent the rest of the night locked in my room, too afraid to move. Every creak of the house made my skin crawl. In the morning, I checked his room again. The book was still on the floor, right where it had fallen. But there was nothing else out of place. No sign of an intruder. No forced entry. No rational explanation. To this day, I try to tell myself that I imagined it, that I dreamed the voice, that my mind had played tricks on me in the haze of sleep. Because the alternative? The alternative is far more terrifying. Story 2. It was the middle of winter when it happened. One of those nights when the cold pressed against the windows like a living thing, the wind howling through the trees outside. I was 14, home alone for the night. My mom was working an overnight shift at the hospital, something she did often, and my older brother, Ben, was off at college. I had a girl over that night, Riley. We had been talking for a few months, and she had convinced her parents to let her stay over for a little while. We watched a couple of movies in the den, the kind of old horror flicks that relied more on atmosphere than jump scares. Neither of us admitted it, but I think we both felt a little uneasy being alone in such a big house. By 10:30 p.m., her phone buzzed. Her parents wanted her home. I'll text you when I get back, she said, slipping into her coat. Yeah, all right, I replied, trying to sound casual. She gave me a playful punch on the arm before heading out. I walked her to the front door, watching as she disappeared into the night, the glow of the streetlights reflecting off the thin layer of snow covering the driveway. When the door clicked shut behind me, the house felt different, quieter, bigger. I went upstairs to my room and sat on my bed, turning the TV on low for background noise. The bedroom window overlooked the backyard, a small deck, a patch of grass, and then a dense line of trees that stretched into the woods. A few minutes later, as I mindlessly scrolled through my phone, I heard it. A sound outside. A dragging noise. I hesitated, then stood and crossed the room to the window. The yard was covered in frost, the trees swaying slightly in the wind. Then I saw him. A man, sitting on one of the deck chairs. My stomach twisted. At first, I thought it was Ben, maybe back from college on some surprise visit. But as I squinted through the darkness, I realized I didn't recognize him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a heavy coat. His face was turned slightly upward. He was staring directly at my window. I jerked back, my pulse spiking. My first thought was that Riley had left something outside, and maybe one of the neighbors had come over to return it. But as I peeked out again, the man was still sitting there, completely still, watching. A ripple of unease crawled up my spine. I texted Riley. Me. You didn't come back, did you? Riley, what? No, I'm home. Why? I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my bedroom light and sat on the floor, my back against the bed, breathing hard. 5 minutes passed. Then, another noise. A faint tapping on the glass. I forced myself to look. He was still sitting in the same chair, but now he was laughing. No sound. No movement except for his shoulders shaking. His head was tilted slightly, as if he found something hilarious. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone and opened the group chat with a few close friends. Me. Is anyone messing with me right now? A couple of quick replies. Leo, messing with you how? Me. There's some dude in my backyard, just staring at my window. Laughing. Leo, dude, what the hell? Call the cops. I didn't want to. Something about calling for help made it feel too real. Too dangerous. Instead, I stayed frozen, waiting for him to leave. But he didn't. Then, I heard footsteps on the porch. My breath caught in my throat. He was moving now, not towards the window, but towards the back door. A slow, deliberate shuffle. I crept toward my bedroom door, cracked it open, and listened. The house was silent, except for the faint sound of the wind outside. But then, the door handle rattled. He was trying to get in. I backed up, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then, the front door handle jiggled. My blood went cold. He had moved fast. No way could he have made it from the backyard to the front that quickly, unless there were two of them. A harsh bang against the door, then another. I ran into my closet, shutting the door just enough to peek through the crack. My fingers hovered over my phone, but I still couldn't bring myself to dial 911. I waited. Everything fell silent. Minutes stretched on, the only sound my ragged breathing. Then, scraping metal against glass. I turned just enough to see. The bedroom window was sliding open. A dark figure pulled itself inside. I shoved my fist against my mouth to keep from making a sound. The man, or whatever he was, stood perfectly still in the darkness of my room. He knew I was here. I could feel it. Then, in the quiet, his voice came, low, hoarse, almost amused. I know you're still awake. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing my breathing to slow. Then, footsteps. Soft, measured, coming closer. He was checking the closet. I curled into myself, pressing further into the shadows. My hands gripped the edges of a thick winter coat that hung over me, as if it could somehow shield me. Then, the closet door opened. A long silence. Then, a chuckle. I dared to peek through my lashes. He was standing there, inches away, staring into the closet. His eyes moved over the hanging clothes, pausing just above where I was hiding. I swore he saw me, but he didn't move. After what felt like forever, he exhaled sharply, like he was disappointed. Then he turned and left the room. I heard him exit the house the way he came in. I didn't move, not until I heard the sound of distant sirens. It wasn't until the next morning that I found out why they left. Someone had called the cops. Not me, not any of my friends. Riley's dad. Apparently, when Riley had gotten home, she mentioned me texting her about someone outside. Her dad, being paranoid, had driven by our house to check things out. He'd seen two men standing by my front door, fiddling with the lock. When his headlights hit them, they both ran. The police found footprints in the snow leading from the woods behind my house. The back door lock had been tampered with, but not broken. The bedroom window had been forced open with a crowbar. But nothing had been taken. Nothing had been stolen. They never came to rob me. They came for something else. And if Riley's dad hadn't shown up when he did, I don't know if I'd be here to tell the story. Story 3. I was 10 years old when it happened. Back then, my world was still small. Just school, home, and weekends spent playing video games with my older brother, Derek. We lived in a quiet neighborhood in a house that always felt a little too big when my parents weren't home. That night, they left in a hurry. I remember sitting in my room, a Star Wars game paused on the TV, when my mom's panicked voice called my name. She was in the hallway, coat half on, her face pale. "We have to go. Your brother's in the hospital." Derek had been out with his friends that night. I didn't know what had happened at the time, only that there had been an accident. A car, a broken leg. "Are you okay staying home?" my dad asked, already moving toward the door. I nodded. It wasn't unusual for me to be alone for a few hours, though it was normally planned. They left in a rush, the front door slamming behind them. Suddenly, the house felt different. Bigger, quieter. I tried to distract myself, picking up the controller and unpausing my game. The characters on the screen moved, but my focus kept shifting to the dark hallway outside my bedroom. The house was too still. Then, a sound. The front door opening. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. I hadn't heard a car. Hadn't heard footsteps on the porch. I quickly turned off the TV, throwing my room into darkness. I waited, straining to hear something, anything. At first, nothing. Then, soft footsteps. I crept toward my door and eased it open just a crack. The hallway stretched out before me, leading to the living room below. The lights were off, but through the railing, I could see the front door standing ajar. And inside the house, 3 tall figures stood in the dark. I stopped breathing. They were completely still. No whispers. No shuffling. Just standing. They weren't my parents. They weren't Derek. I didn't know who they were. I backed up slowly, inching the door shut, but click. The latch made a tiny noise, barely audible. But they heard it, because at that exact moment, one of them turned their head up. I saw it happen through the crack in the door. The slow, deliberate way their head tilted toward the hallway, like they already knew I was there. Like they were waiting for me. I shoved my hand against my mouth, stepping backward until I hit the dresser. My legs felt like jelly. Then, the footsteps started up the stairs. I scrambled toward my closet, throwing myself inside, pulling the door shut just enough so I could see through the slats. The hallway creaked, and then my bedroom door opened. A shadow stretched across the floor. I couldn't see them completely from my hiding spot, but I could see their feet, dark boots shifting against the carpet. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, the feet turned, walked toward my bed. I could hear my covers shifting as they touched them, as if checking to see if I was there. Then, silence. A long pause. And then, the closet door cracked open. I wanted to scream, wanted to run, but I didn't. I stayed still. For what felt like forever, they just stood there, peering in. I swore I saw movement through the slats of the closet door, a flicker of motion, the glint of eyes staring in. I clenched my fists, pressing my nails into my palms. Then, the door closed. I listened to their footsteps as they left the room. They didn't go downstairs. They didn't leave. They were still in the house. I stayed hidden for what felt like an eternity, every noise making my pulse hammer in my throat. Finally, after what must have been an hour, I heard the front door close again. Silence. I didn't move for a long time. When I finally got the courage to come out, I crept toward the stairs and peered into the living room below. The door was shut. The lights were off. Nothing was missing. Nothing was out of place. It was as if they had never been there. But I knew what I had seen. The police came later when my parents returned and found me shaking in the corner of my room. They searched the house, but found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints in the snow outside. But they had been there. I know they had. And sometimes, even now, in the middle of the night, I feel like they still are.